Hey everyone, welcome to the Silicon Alley podcast. I'm your host, William Glass. I'm really excited to share this week's episode with you. It is called Every Day is Friday. I'm sitting down with Wes Harrington, who, while not an entrepreneur in the strict definition, has a lot of those entrepreneurial qualities and had to make a really tough decision of going down a very strict prescriptive path that his parents wanted him to go down of becoming an optometrist and really discovering what he truly was passionate about and going for it. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you, and I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Wes Harrington.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find. Holding a hole when it'll only keep you on the outside.
Hey Wes, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Will?
Good. I'm really excited to have you on because you're doing something that's really unique that a lot of people I think are going to be pretty jealous of when they hear about flying through the skies and all that. So really wanted to sit down. It's something that I admire about you, the fact that you were going down one path and decided to pivot and find something that you're really passionate about. So I want to talk a little bit about that and share with the audience.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect.
Help you all.
Great. So tell me a little bit about, so you're a pilot now, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about what you were doing before.
Okay, so before I was on my way to a more healthcare-oriented path. I was actually on my way to become an optometrist. I was working with an eye doctor at the time, just helping him like his little sidekick, working out patients, getting them ready, checking their vision, and all that fun stuff. I was working office hours, so it was 8 to 5.
Okay.
So that whole office schedule was what I was oriented with. Weekends off, which was nice.
Yeah.
So it's a lot different to what my schedule is now.
Yeah.
So there are parts I miss.
Sure, having a little bit of structure. Yeah. Well, so have you always enjoyed flying?
Yeah. So I've always admired traveling. I have family in Ireland, so I would spend most of my summers in Ireland. And I probably had more fun on the plane than in Ireland. Since I was a younger boy, I always admired aviation and pilots and airplanes, and every time that I would travel with my family, I would just look at the pilot like a hero. Like, I just thought what they did was so cool, and I was like, you're God, like, you're so cool. But I never thought that I would actually follow my heart. So that's what's really cool about what I'm doing. Not just flying itself, but just following my heart.
So why did you feel that you wouldn't be able to follow your heart? What did that look like before? What did you go to school for? All that stuff?
Definitely. So I went to a college prep high school. So it was in the norm to go to college, which I do agree with. I'm so glad I went to college and I studied psychology. I was on my way to a healthcare-oriented profession. Mm-hmm. My parents are in medicine, so they kind of structured that for me. And they've always pushed me to go that way.
Yeah.
So I was kind of fulfilling their dreams in their eyes.
Okay.
I wasn't really listening to myself. So it's funny that I ended up just kind of doing what I love, not what they love.
Yeah.
But I admire people in healthcare.
Oh, absolutely.
Since that's what I grew up with, I'd hear all kinds of stuff at the dinner table. So...
yeah, I'm sure you had some interesting stories.
Yeah.
So what was that moment or maybe it wasn't a moment, maybe it was a series of moments that made you realize, hey, this isn't what I want to do and I really want to go fly and be a pilot? Talk me through that.
Yeah, so transition. It's funny because one night I was out back with my mom after dinner and she was talking about applying to optometry school. This was post-college. Mm-hmm. This was working for the eye doctor, getting that patient and hands-on experience that I needed for optometry school. Mm-hmm. And she kind of second-guessed. She didn't really feel that passion or fire in my voice.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what happened exactly, but she mentioned something about piloting because she knew that was something I was so passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think like a plane was flying over like, at the moment. And I was just like watching it. And she was like, what about a pilot? Would you want to do that? And like, I just, hearing that from her really like, oh, I can do that. Like, I'm allowed to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I was really following their footsteps. So I looked into it more. I was on Google, like flight schools, how to go about becoming a pilot, and it just seemed so expensive and arduous. So I actually had a dinner. I had sat down with my stepdad, and I just told him. My mom wasn't there. My stepbrother was there. I had told my stepbrother already. I think I was more scared to tell them this than coming out of the closet. They were so set on me going down a different path. So I just told my stepdad, he's basically dad. I was like, yeah, I want to be a pilot. Like, that's all I ever wanted. And my stepdad was like, awesome. Like, that's so great. You found something that you love. I'm like, I've always loved that. So I just did a discovery flight, and it was so cool. You're used to flying in like a huge fancy jet, but your discovery flight, I was just in this little plane with someone I didn't know, and
Just a little puddle jumper?
just a little tiny little like Piper.
Okay.
So it was very different, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I just knew from that flight, I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do.
That's awesome.
So
So you got a chance to test it out before. And
I did.
It's interesting that you were so scared to tell your parents, but at the same time, your mom was the one that kind of helped nudge you a little bit in a way.
in a way, yes, she did. She nudged me. She was really testing my passion. She didn't feel I was passionate about medicine
Yeah.
as they were,
Mhm.
which I admire. I admire people who do what they love. And that's all. It doesn't matter what you do at the end of the day. It's doing what you wake up loving. Because when I wake up to go fly and teach, it's every day's Friday. You know that feeling. So she was really, she didn't feel that in my voice at the time. She was just like, you don't seem so into like eyes. I think it's so cool, but no, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that she sat me down.
It's a really neat story of how you ended up identifying your passion and just going for it and having that support and that kind of self-doubt of like, it never crossed your mind that you could actually be a pilot. And then when you actually looked into it, you figured out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
So what was that like, that transition? Okay, I decided this is what I want to do. I want to be a pilot. Oh my gosh, it's expensive to be a pilot. Like,
yeah, that was a true testament to my drive for that. So I just sat down one day and I was just on my laptop. I was budgeting. I was on Excel budgeting, like how I can afford this. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to have my parents support me. They were going to support me through optometry school, but I didn't know if they were actually going to support me through flight school.
yeah,
So I budgeted it for myself, and I presented it to my parents as this is my plan. And my dad was like, wow, you can be an adult. That's great. But actually, we're going to support you. So I was lucky and fortunate enough to have that. And I will do the same when I have kids.
yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing that you got not only the go after your passion support, but the financial and help from the parents to push you to do that.
Yes.
That's huge.
It was really huge. I was so happy. I was like, thank you so much. Like, that's great. So it is expensive, though. I saw the numbers, and becoming a pilot is pricey. So,
What are the like rough figures for range if you want to become a pilot?
so there are so many ways that you can go about doing it.
Okay.
How I would recommend is going through a structured flight school.
Okay.
That will get you all the way through your commercial. So
Okay.
you start off getting your private certificate, and then you'll need your instrument certificate.
Okay. What's the private versus instrument? What's the difference?
So my private pilot will allow me to go ahead and you are a pilot. You're a certificated pilot at that. It's like your first milestone. So you can fly by yourself. That's like your very first. You can't be paid though. Okay. So once you're a commercial pilot, now you can be paid. So you get your private, and then yay, that's awesome. You're a pilot. Then you get your instrument rating. Okay. If you want, you don't have to. But if you want to be an airline pilot, like I want to be eventually, you will need an instrument rating. So the instrument rating is what allows a pilot to fly solely by the instruments of a plane. So if, let's say there's bad weather and you can't see the visibility is really bad. You have to fly through clouds. You can fly the plane just based off the instruments.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
that's kind of scary. I mean, that's cool, but like it's really never thought about that, having to fly blind.
It is and always will be my favorite part of training, and I can't wait to teach that. Getting your instrument rating really sets apart the boys from the men, in my opinion. That's when you really become a pilot.
That's when you become one.
So after that, then you'll get your commercial certificate. Then, you can get paid. And then I chose the flight instructor route to build my hours. So I didn't get an aviation degree. I got my degree in psychology. So if I had gotten my aviation degree, I wouldn't need as many hours as I do. So, for example, I have a couple friends. They have a degree in aviation. They only need 1,000 hours to get their airline pilot certificate. Okay. Whereas me, I need 1,500. So
you got an extra 500 to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fine.
So what's your day like as a pilot? What does that look like?
It's so different from office hours. That's where things get hectic. So my schedule, I don't find out usually till 2 to a day before, 2 days to a day before. So it's sporadic. It can be hectic. There are times I come home at 1 a.m. Stuff happens, weather gets in the way, planes break down, or my students will be late. So it's all over the place at the moment. I know that once I go to the airlines, it'll probably be the same way, and I'll have overnights. So people who are listening are thinking about becoming a pilot, just expect to be away from home for a good bit. Not now, but once I go to an airline.
Yeah.
For sure.
That makes sense. You are flying people to and from different locations and destinations.
Right.
What's been the biggest adjustment? So going from office hours of that 9 to 5 to I'm on call, essentially like a doctor, right? You know, like you're on call, like
I'm needed. I'd say one of the biggest adjustments is trying to find time to myself to like get my energy up and like get proper rest and nutrition. There are days it's just I'm just constantly going. So once you finally get a break like I do now, it's so you really appreciate those moments because you really need to rest.
Don't want to fly tired. That does not sound like a good recipe.
So really, finding that time to yourself to really recharge has been a adjustment.
I want to pivot and talk a little bit about the personal finance. That's what the podcast and what we're doing is a little bit about. So how would you describe your relationship with money?
Well, okay, so right now I look at money as just a bonus because I'm doing what I love. It's important. I need it, but it's not my end all be all at the moment. I'm not making serious airline money, but I am making enough to support myself. But at the end of the day, it's really not about the paycheck. It's what I'm doing, which I love. So I guess it's cool to look at it that way.
That is. So it's almost like the money is enabling you to just do what you enjoy, right? Versus
absolutely
having to grind it out.
Definitely. I will say, though, it is better to be on the flip side of it. So it's good to know that having gone through the training as a student and paying, it's much better to be paid for what you love to do. So
you've taken the pivot from having to do all the certifications to now that you're making money as a pilot and also working towards the ultimate goal of becoming a commercial pilot.
Yeah, exactly. And I know the triumphs and the hardship. I've seen it. So I can relate to students who are, I know how much money they're paying. So I work with them a lot. I know what they're paying and how much motivation is there. So, yeah.
It's an expensive hobby or career. Sorry.
Yeah, both.
But whichever route you decide to go. What's been the biggest challenge when it comes to finances versus, looking at medicine to being a pilot?
Yeah, so I would say that they are closely correlated.
Okay. As
far as expense, expect a lot to take out a lot of money. But I will say that if you can't afford flight training, you can always take out loans as well, which is really nice.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And some flight schools have partnerships with different banks or financial institutions that will support you, or students who can't afford it, who can get a loan and pay it back once they go to the airlines, which is really cool.
That is, I didn't know that. I mean, you think about student loans for college and grad school and all that, but I didn't realize that you could do that for flight school.
Yeah, it's really nice that they have that. So there's a huge pilot shortage at the moment. There's not many people who can afford it. Okay. There's a lot of training involved. Once you get one thing, you can't get too comfortable. You have to keep going and going to get that next rating. So people don't want to put in that time or effort. Yeah. It's pretty sad because I've had a lot of friends who are like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. I'm like, but you could have. You still there are loans.
You can do it.
It's never too late. So
when it comes to being a pilot, do you have a moment or something that really sticks out? The first time maybe you were flying solo, or any moment or moments that like really stick out and highlight this is what it's like to be a pilot, and oh my gosh, I can fly a plane.
Yeah, so I have a few stories. Definitely my first solo flight. That was just like amazing. Yeah, so much adrenaline and like, okay, I took off. Now I have to land this thing. So there's that. And then there's, getting all those milestones, knowing that you can do it. Yeah. And putting your trust in your instructor. Yeah. Because when they sign you off, they're trusting that you can get that certificate. And then passing that check ride and saying, I did it. Like, I can do this. So there's that thrill and excitement. Becoming a flight instructor is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. It really tested so much out of me. And taking up students is exciting because they're trusting you. Yeah. And it's so cool to watch them progress. And for now, that's what really excites me, is watching a student understand something that I teach. And watching that clicking moment is so cool. So
I bet. So what are some of so you mentioned this is something that real big passion, and then you said that this was one of the most challenging things that you've ever done. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about what was so challenging.
Well, definitely from the training part, putting it all together during a FAA check ride with an examiner is pretty scary, because first you go through an oral, and then when you pass that, then you fly with them. So they're just checking to make sure that you're right for that certificate. Okay. So I don't like tests at all, especially one-on-one, like an oral. That's pretty scary. Yeah. There's just a lot of anxiousness and stress surrounding it, because you don't want to fail too many times for your record. So you want to have a good record throughout. Yeah. And I failed a few. I'm not perfect, but that's what really kept me going and really, I think, motivated me to continue to go.
Interesting. So those moments of failure to try to go and go master that material and master those skills or whatever. I'm not sure what they were testing, but
yeah, definitely. Okay. So
I want to go back to. So it can be expensive to go, but what are some of the other requirements that you need to become a pilot? So if I want to become a pilot, do I need to be a certain age? Do I need to have a certain level of education? What are the actual requirements?
That's a really great question. So I'll start from one basic thing is you're going to need a medical exam. So you're going to have to be in healthy condition. You don't have to have perfect vision, but at least best corrected vision. They test how you hear. Okay. They test everything. So you'll have a very thorough medical. So there's different classes of medicals that will allow you to do certain things. For, we'll say, commercial purposes, becoming an airline pilot, you'll need it's called a first class medical. So you get checked every year to be able to perform those duties.
Okay.
And depending on your age, so if you're over 40, it's every 6 months.
Oh, interesting.
But, yeah. So that's one basic thing you'll need, a medical, and definitely a drive and a passion to want to do it. So
okay, but you don't have to. It's not like you don't have to be a certain age, or you need to be over the age of 16 or whatever. Or I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, in the airlines, they require you to retire by 65. So just for safety purposes, I'm assuming. I'm not really sure why. But I heard they're trying to change it to 67, which is cool.
Yeah. A couple extra years.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a pilot shortage.
Definitely.
Well, talk to me a little bit about the future. So what are you driving towards now? What does that future, Wesley look like?
That's so funny you bring that up because I never thought I would make it this far as a flight instructor. I think it's really cool, actually, if I take a moment to reflect on how far I've come now because I never thought I actually would make it this far. I didn't think I would actually be bringing up students, teaching, and I thought I would be, there are other ways you can be a commercial pilot, like towing banners on the beach or so many other things you can do, but I really think this is a huge milestone to have made it this far. Obviously, I want to go to the airlines, and I need that 1,500 hours, so I'm around 400 right now. Okay. And I have like 1,100 to go, so I know that I want to go to the airlines, and one day I want to be a 777 captain flying international. Okay. So is that the level beyond being commercial? Okay. Yeah. So that'll be it's awesome. Big leagues. I have to start out small, flying smaller jets. Yeah. Not as many passengers, and work my way up. So all right. I think that's one thing for people who are interested in this, to not get comfortable where you are. Okay. And to keep trying to push yourself to become a better version and keep learning and push yourself. That's some advice I have for people who want to go in this field, is to just keep learning. You're not perfect. Keep pushing yourself. Don't get too comfortable. Yeah. And that's what I love about it, because I keep pushing myself. So that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just great life advice too. I mean, definitely. I know you mentioned before we started recording, we were talking earlier about I think you said the number one thing that you learn first day in pilot school is that you have to always be learning and continuing to learn. Yeah, definitely. A good pilot never stops learning. That's the number one rule. So if you're not learning, then you're doing something wrong. There are days I still learn things when I'm teaching. Like their weather comes up and a student will give me that look, like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I got this. We're going to figure this out together. So that's really cool too. That is, yeah. That's really awesome. Yeah. So we've kind of touched on this, but is there any other advice that you give for other folks that might be interested in becoming a pilot? Yeah, for anyone who's interested in becoming a pilot, do it. It is so fun. It's so cool. It's so rewarding. And there's no better office view than being in the sky with sunsets. And it's just so rewarding, and I love it. And I can't wait until I get to the airlines and I can travel when I'm off. And there's so many reasons why you should do it. And stop finding an excuse to not. There is a way to do it. I love that. I know, especially like our generation, people love traveling, and that's the big thing. Everyone says they want to travel, and you're doing it. You're turning it into a career and finding that passion, and that's just fun. I really love that. Yeah, and it is cool because when I was seeking it out, thinking about if that's really what I wanted to devote my life to, I was finding ways, like excuses why I shouldn't. And I think I needed that nudge from my mom. So This is your nudge to anyone listening. Go do it.
Wes says go be a pilot. Perfect. So I've got some rapid fire questions, but before we do that, I don't think we talked about it. How much do commercial pilots make roughly? Like, what does that look like?
So starting off, I think I heard like between 50 to 80, depending on what airline you go to, starting off and how much time you devote to it. Then once you make captain, you'll be 6 figures.
Okay.
And then once you're at a major airline, not a regional airline, you'll be way over 6 figures. So once you make your way to international piloting, it's 200 to 300,000 a year. I've heard more. It depends what company you go to, what airline, or if you want to fly for FedEx or UPS and have no life, then you'll be making more than 300. So,
wow.
It's rewarding. You just have to devote that time.
Wow, yeah. I didn't realize that pilots made that much.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
A lot more than I'm making now, but that's okay.
Yeah. You'll get there.
Yeah.
So now I want to switch to a couple rapid fire questions. So what is the best investment you've ever made?
Oh, that's a good question. Could you say, can investment be anything?
Anything, however you define investment.
Okay, so definitely the time that I've spent piloting and the training. That's one of the best investments I made. And watching myself grow and progress through that investment.
That's awesome. I love that.
It doesn't always have to be.
It doesn't have to be, a stock.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think that honestly, some of the best investments you can make are time investments and effort investments.
Even with like life, when you invest through self and time and people, that's truly love, and that's care. Not just what you do, but the people you invest your time with. There's nothing more amazing than that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Perfect. Next question. Dumbest money mistake you've ever made?
Oh, man. For this career, I had a lull in my training up north because the weather was getting really bad. So I knew that I needed to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this flight school that would get me done super quick out west, California. So I was like, okay, they can get me finished my private in a week. It was just way too fast.
Yeah.
So this is something you really need to take your time with.
Okay.
And I figured that out the hard way. And I didn't give up. I kept going, but I found a better school that I could take my time with.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah, it's important.
It's important. Don't just jump to conclusions.
Exactly. Yeah, don't just go, oh, that one's cheap and quick, and there's probably a reason why it's cheap and quick.
Yes.
It's usually not a good reason.
Another advice I have is to have patience. I wasn't patient at first. I just wanted results. Have patience. You'll get there.
Yeah. This is something that you want to do for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to get it done tomorrow. Right.
So it takes time.
Yeah. What is the most frivolous way you've ever spent your money? Or frivolous thing you've ever spent it on?
I'm pretty sure I dropped like $600 on a TV that I barely got to watch.
Really? Yeah.
And still, I don't really watch much. I watch TV, but when I have time just to relax or whatever. But yeah, I spent looking back, I'm like, why did I spend $600 on a TV?
That I barely use.
Yeah, barely. I mean, it's cool when I have friends come over, watch the game or whatever. But
yeah, I like that. Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you think that is facing everyday Americans when it comes to finances?
I don't think people really invest much time in themselves. I think they really need to spend more time recharging, investing in themselves.
Any advice?
Definitely take time to yourself. We all need to recharge, and not just as a pilot, doctor, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Just invest in yourself. Take some time to recharge and better yourself, however that is, or exercise. The basics.
The basics. I like that. And then going back, looking at little 13-year-old Wesley, what is the advice that you'd give your 13-year-old self about money or life?
My 13-year-old self, wow. I think he would be really proud of me for following his heart. But I would tell him, you should have followed your heart a lot sooner.
You'll get there eventually, but do it sooner.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I would tell my 13-year-old self.
I like that. Well, that's all I have. Is there anything that you want to, anything else you'd like to add or say? Or
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, Wes. So that's it for the Silicon Alley podcast and my conversation with Wes Harrington. I hope that you could hear his passion in his voice and how just happy he is as a pilot, and knowing that if that's something that you're interested in, you can do it, and whatever it is that you're focused on, you can get there too. So I hope that you enjoy. Please make sure to subscribe, leave a rating and review if you so please, and tune in next week. A teaser at the end of this episode for next week's Silicon Alley podcast. Thanks so much. I'm your host, William Glass.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find. Holding a hope and it'll only keep you on the outside.
Shout out to Brett Miller for providing his song Million Voices as the theme music for this podcast. A special thanks to Carolina Gankars for help editing. And always thank you to everyone who supports the podcast, and to you. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. Thanks so much. This is a Financial Glass production. Here's a sneak peek into next week's episode. Man, the first investor we talked to wants to give us $60,000. This is great. Like, we're breaking all the stereotypes and stories about having to knock on hundreds and hundreds of doors and getting no's before you finally get one yes. New episodes every Friday.